Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening. It's always time because tonight is Touchdown in Paradise here on Finn's Talk Sports Network. I'm Justin.
I'm Russ.
I'm Joey.
And I'm Joe.
You notice somebody's not here, but somebody else is. I'd like to introduce the crowd to a man who I've known for many years, actually longer, I think, than I've known Russ and Joe or Pete. A guy who has been wanting to come on the show for weeks, and we finally made it happen. Filling in for Sabbatical P, Mr. Joey Hoy.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Joey, we know that you're a big Trojans fan, and I know they didn't do too well this week, but they were about to win, and then they went to overtime and lost. What was your reaction to that?
I never put too much hope in the Trojans. Unfortunately, my heart's been broken too many times. I was honestly more positive about this one than in the past. But look, the kicker's not great, but it didn't just come down to the missed field goal in overtime. I think that there's so many things you can pick apart, but initially, like huge disappointment. You always rather think like, oh, you want it to be close like that and lose in overtime, or you want to get blown out. I mean, at least they didn't get exposed. I don't think that they played a bad game. I think there was some mismanagement on Riley's part, not taking some timeouts towards the end. But yeah, it was. It's disappointing to lose by 3 points in overtime at home.
Yeah, how's the outlook for the Big Ten looking at this point? For them,
I think
specifically.
So I think they did have a pretty difficult schedule first part of the year. I mean, definitely some games that they should have won. Penn State. I don't know what happened with Minnesota, but they didn't have their stuff figured out. Going up the land of 10,000 lakes. A little bit of an easier schedule moving forward. Got some road games against some lesser teams. But yeah, I mean, hey, it's travel involved, and these kids are young and it's inexperienced. I mean, just looking at their offense, it's like there's two seniors on that. It's the running back in the center, and they're young guys, so who knows how they're going to be handling the travel. So yeah, easier schedule. Some road games coming up, but I think it's definitely more palatable than the first 6 weeks.
And definitely, this is going to be the first freshman class for all the new Big Ten teams who are going to have to travel coast to coast for 4 years. Well, in college, who knows if you're actually going to be there 4 years or 3 years or 8 years. If you're Cam McCormick, 9 years. Today's day and age is just very interesting with all that. But we're going to stay in the Big Ten for a second here because we had a pretty big game happen in the Big Ten recently with the Ducks and the Bucks. Oregon beats Ohio State with a late field goal. My old guy, Dylan Gabriel from UCF, now at Oregon, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns with 1 rushing. Jordan James, 115 on the ground, 1 touchdown. And Evan Stewart, 7 catches, 149 yards, 1 touchdown. Will Howard on the Ohio State side, 326, 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith had 9 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. At the very end of the game, Russ, there was a very boneheaded decision made. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. I saw that on Sunday, and I'm like, I'm not going to tell these guys at all. I'm not putting this post out because I want to talk about that. I don't want any of you guys getting the lead. I'm hiding my sources. Dude, when I saw that, I was like, when Dan Lanning put 12 men on the field and ran 6 seconds off the clock, that was just like, yeah. I mean, you think of it just from like the naked view. You're just watching the game and you're like, oh, what a fucking dumbass. Excuse my language. And then you look at it, I'm like, oh, he just ran the clock. You get 5 yards and they're still out of field goal range. That was a hell of a decision. I didn't think Dan Lanning would do that because he's made some bonehead decisions in his coaching time, but that was a hell of a decision. I mean, even with that, I mean, that Jeremiah Smith pass interference there was really big. That probably would have given him the game-winning field goal. Just want to throw it out. I live in Sarasota, Florida, so we got rocked pretty hard here the last week with our hurricane. Want to give a big shout-out to all our first responders, Sean Lucas, the firemen, all the linemen who are slowly getting our power back up. They've done an amazing job. Hopefully we get a break, but it's going to take a long time to build all our beautiful stuff back up. But the first responders and all those linemen getting power back up, they've done an amazing job.
We're glad that you're okay, Russ. We're glad that a lot of people are okay, but we're praying for those who've lost everything and their power here at Finstock Sports Network, as we are a Dolphins-based network, but we live all over them.
I mean,
Joe,
unfortunately, like, you go into those things and you're like, you lose everything, but like at the end of the day, the most important thing is everybody's safe. Stuff can be replaced. I mean, it's terrible, but can't replace your life, unfortunately.
absolutely.
Not yet. Maybe Elon will figure a way to do, get us to do that.
Yeah, we're very close, or maybe he thinks we're pretty close. Joe, outside of that decision, I was talking about a bonehead decision by the Ohio State quarterback.
Oh, you're talking about the other one. Oh,
that's what I was referring to. You decided to talk about that, but I'm glad I gave you the floor first. Joe, tell me about what Will Howard did last second there.
Oh, man. It was – oh, did I lose you guys?
Oh, we still got you.
Oh, okay. No, my bad. Yeah, it was a boneheaded decision. But, when last seconds, all the things, different things going through your head, that's the last thing you're thinking about. You're just trying to get the ball off, and you don't. Like, it's crazy. But, Oregon was the better team in the long run. They outplayed them, simply outplayed them.
And Joey, I don't know if you got a chance to watch this game, because I know your eyes are everywhere and you're a busy guy, I know. But if you're looking at this game, do you see these teams meeting again in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship?
Absolutely. I think the only real other team was Penn State, but I mean, SC, I definitely think, did show that they are definitely beatable. Talk about a heartbreaker for SC, Joey. I feel for you. That game was brutal. But yeah, I definitely think Ohio State, Oregon will definitely see each other in Indianapolis. They're the two best teams. I think
Same question to Joey.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think, yeah, especially as some of these dominoes are falling with, early contenders in the season like USC. I don't see why these guys wouldn't meet each other again. Again, like Joe said, the SC's proven that they can be beaten. And yeah, it's some growing pains getting into, getting into a new conference and just trying to navigate the ins and outs of different style of football. So yeah, I think right now, as we stand, kind of midway through the season, those two would be the front runners.
Somewhat staying in the Big Ten, but also joining in with the SEC. The SEC and Big Ten leaders met in Nashville this past week. This is pretty big news to dictate the future of college sports. The only thing that was really decided per the Seattle Times was no private equity funds are going to be funneled in here. Now, this could put pressure on the committee, though, to select their teams like a potential 9-3 Tennessee over an 11-2 ACC runner-up like Clemson, if it comes to that for the Seattle Times. But college football right now is as wide open as ever. In my opinion, it's like comparing it to the cryptocurrency space and the NFT space, where so much is up in the air and anybody can literally do anything. It's all unregulated. But what it is showing me, in my opinion, is every conference is now bowing down to the big two. Joe, your thoughts on this?
This is a business and money talks. So, I mean, and I definitely agree with you. It's definitely like the cryptocurrency space. It definitely feels a bit like controlled chaos in a way. But ultimately, I think whichever side has more money is going to win that decision.
Russ, same question.
100% agree with you, Joe. Money talks. There's a reason that everybody says those are an SEC biased. I'm like, money talks, SEC. Those fans don't. It doesn't matter where they play. They come out. They show out. Those Alabama fans last year, they packed the Rose Bowl. The SEC fans. This is their professional sports.
It's the reason why SC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington are in the Big Ten.
Yeah, but this is their professional sports, and money does talk, and these people are. It is now a business. It's not a student athlete anymore, so it's just simply a business. I mean, granted, I'm fine with it because, I mean, if I'm watching college football, I'm keying in on the SEC first is where I'm going. That's the best football if we're really getting down to it. Now the Big Ten is right there with the expansion, but if we're really getting down to the SEC is the best football.
Joey, can you talk a bit about what is the decision meaning no private equity funds being in here? Meaning, is this keeping the sport more pure and they're not trying to businessify it, if that's even a word? Or are they focusing a lot more on the NIL? When you hear things like that, what comes to your mind?
Right. I mean, immediately what comes to mind is like, hey, we have to remember this is sport, this is entertainment, but it's also a multi-billion-dollar business. So at the end of the day, yeah, Joe, money is going to talk. When it comes to private equity, I think that might be something. Even though that's tabled right now, it's it just could be in the parking lot for something to go down in the future. So not that book's shut. So that could definitely be something that comes up down the line. In terms of NIL, I think that should have. I mean, I think that should have happened years ago. I think it's very complicated at the same time. I mean, it's definitely the Wild West when it comes to all those things. And then, I mean, you can go down the funnel and get into, not just with football, but then, what are the advantages and the exposure for other athletes in different sports? So yeah, obviously like football, it's going to get the most notoriety and you're going to get your most bang for your buck there. But I mean, I think it should continue going down that. It should continue going down that road. I mean, if these organizations, these institutions are going to be profiting off of these players' talent and their notoriety, they should get a piece of the pie, if not the whole thing.
Right, because we saw back in 2007, Tim Tebow was the highest selling jersey worldwide of anything. You would see his jersey in Turkey, Uganda, all these different countries, and guess how much he allegedly made off of all that? Whereas today with NIL, that's possible to actually get that slice of the pie. We saw Caleb Williams making 7 or 8 figures in college. Meanwhile, Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, they may have been paid under the table, but there's a whole story that Matt Leinart had a whole apartment complex with his teammates, essentially, and they were all wired up playing Halo together from room to room. Meanwhile, Caleb is living in a nice studio loft in the USC area, and just the difference between the era. But if NIL was around then, how much money would Reggie Bush have made legally?
Well, he wouldn't have had his Heisman taken away either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got it back.
No, he did, but again, he shouldn't have been taken in the first place if NIL was brought sooner.
And that took way too long for him to get it back. I'm biased, but I mean, that was just,
I mean, it was no secret that people were. I mean, look at the SMU back in the 80s. I mean, that's why they got the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing them rise again in the day of NIL when all these billionaire boosters in Dallas and these alum who have the money are allowed to interfere with that again legally. Yeah. They were able to get themselves in the ACC while selling their soul to the devil in a way, not taking any TV money for the first 9 or 10 years being in the conference. But they're able to, dare I say, pony up the cash.
Nice.
I'll show myself out. Joey, remember when your wife did stand-up years ago?
Of course.
I was there too.
Yeah. So you learned a note or two from her. So.
Oh yeah, I learned so much from your wife. I've known his wife longer than her. For our viewers, we used to work together, and Laura is a master of improv, and she taught me a whole lot in that regard.
Yeah.
Moving along here, the Tigers roar in Death Valley, not Clemson, but they're roaring too. We're talking LSU and Brian Kelly stun Ole Miss in overtime, 29-26. Garrett Nussmeier, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Kyron Lacey on the ground, 5 catches, 111 yards, and the game-winning touchdown. Jackson Dart, meanwhile, on the Ole Miss side, 284, 1 tutty, 1 pick. Ulysses Bentley, the 4th, on the ground, 107 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. Like I said, in overtime, there was the game-winning touchdown to Kyron Lacey from Nussmeier. It was the first play of the LSU possession, and it was over just like that. Now, Joe, you're a Notre Dame guy. You've seen Brian Kelly longer than anybody. You know how he coaches more. But is LSU a legitimate contender or back to it, per se, after losing week 1 to USC?
No, I mean, it's a good win. It was an impressive win. I honestly, I picked Ole Miss to win, and in my opinion, they should have. They in the fourth quarter, they should have not settled for the field goal. But again, that's why touchdowns wins games. But no, I don't think they are. There's Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, which we'll be talking about later. There's Texas A&M now. They have too difficult of a road to be a legit contender.
Russ, your thoughts on that?
I'm with Joe. I mean, I definitely not a contender, but I mean, that's a nice bounce back. I think people probably wrote off LSU a little bit after a tough loss week 1 in Las Vegas against USC. It wasn't like it was a blowout, but the SEC is pretty deep this year, so I don't see them, getting by. But as I had mentioned the last 2 weeks, you're probably not listening because I talk a lot and a lot of shit comes out of my mouth. But I mean, Lane Kiffin isn't really built for these tough games. He wants I'm gonna hit you quick, I'm gonna blow you out, then we're gonna cruise. He's not built. I mean, that's not the way this team's built, and it shows.
And Joey, Lane Kiffin was your coach once upon a time. Now he's the coach at Ole Miss. Can you see this team responding and trying possibly make it into the college football playoff at this point?
Man, hearing the names Lane Kiffin and Brian Kelly just within seconds of each other is tough for my ears. But yeah, I mean, Russ, I agree with you. I think that's an interesting point. Is that I don't think that team, and specifically Lane Kiffin's coaching style is built to go toe to toe and punch for punch. Wants to get out early, wants to get a big score up, and then again, just kind of cruise. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with adversity down the line. But I just think it trickles down. So it's what's the culture that the coach is instilling in the players, and we saw that at USC. It wasn't one that was very much of a let's go and fight and like kick, scratch, bite, tooth and nail. So it'll be interesting when push comes to shove how they'll respond, but. It doesn't look super promising, especially especially after that loss to LSU.
And Russ, I want to come back to you for a second here because I think you'd have some good insight. With Ole Miss's non-conference schedule, do you think that helped or hurt them when it came to getting into SEC play? Because they played a bunch of, all due respect, nobodies in the.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be tough. I mean, obviously, non-conference schedule is going to go into it, but definitely going to be tough. You lose 2 games you lose to Kentucky a week before. It was not even 2 weeks before. So yeah, they're all running together. I've gone through 2 hurricanes in the last 3 weeks, so they're all running together. Also, but I mean, I guess if you run the table, maybe I don't see that happening. But that non-conference schedule is hurting them big. And Justin, you mentioned the damn it, Florida thing, dude. I've been through 4 hurricanes and I've lived through 4 hurricanes and made it through 2 summers. What's my status in Florida, in your opinion?
Well, I guess you're more of a Floridian than I was because when I was there, we didn't get a single hurricane for maybe 8 to 10 year stretch.
When were you in UCF?
I was at UCF 2012 to 2016.
So you just missed Ian?
Yep, I just missed Ian.
Which wasn't too bad in Orlando anyways, but.
Right. And like we said, we're glad that you're surviving out there. I know you went to Orlando to escape to your sister's house. Right?
And good timing because we had like 150 mile per hour wind in Sarasota, Bradenton area, and we left on Wednesday morning. And if you left anytime from Sunday to Tuesday, it's usually probably 2.5 hour with traffic. It took us 1 hour and 50 minutes because no one was on the road. So it would have been bumper to bumper from here to Orlando because everybody was fleeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember evacuating. It was not Katrina, but Rita. Back in 2005, I was in 6th grade, and we were driving from Houston to Dallas. What's normally a 4-hour drive took us 18 hours just because of the traffic. It was ridiculous. And it's sad, too, that Florida, if you're trying to escape fully, if there's a hurricane, God forbid, hitting the entire State, the peninsula, and you've only got one way out, and that's going up toward Jacksonville and everything.
I mean, and Miami area got hit with like, a lot of tornadoes too. So they had like 30 tornado warnings and 16 touchdowns. So it's like people went south, but if you go south, you're still kind of right there in it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think it's kind of like, I'm not going to say like the media kind of blows it up like, hey, they got to tell you the worst, but they don't tell you like, hey, it could be this. They just go with like the worst case scenario. So everybody flips out. And I'm at the grocery store all the time, and there's no water, there's no bread. And it was bad, but it wasn't a category 5 like they said it was. And like I got so many messages from people like, oh, are you okay? Are you going to survive this? I'm like, yeah, it's going to be bad, but not as worse as they're making it out. And it's kind of like the media just plays on everybody's fear.
I worked in news. That's the name of the game.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's
Wells papers.
That's how they make their money.
Yep. Well, staying on the topic of Miami and Hurricanes, they're one of the 2 unbeaten teams left in the ACC. Pitt, the other one, at 6-0. Checking in on that ACC race, SMU and Clemson both 5-1 with 1 out-of-conference loss each. Meanwhile, Syracuse, Louisville, and UVA all tied at 2-1. Will Cal ever win a conference game? They're turning into like NC State, who can never finish a game, it seems. Joey, some quick input here on the ACC. Who do you feel is going to come out on top at the end? Joey.
Oh, Joey. Sorry, this is Joe.
Well, I
know what come out on the bottom is definitely Cal. But yeah, when it comes down to the ACC stuff, I mean, Clemson, just kind of looking at the history of their program, and again, so you just think about culture and what's going to take you the whole way throughout a season. I trust in Clemson. SMU has looked really good. Watching a few of their games and highlights, so they're interesting to throw in the mix. I'm really confident in both of those 2 teams. But at the end of the day, Pitt, and seeing how they're coming off of how they remain unbeaten rather. I kind of like Pitt a little bit over Miami right now.
Interesting. Russ, do you have the same sentiments about Pitt over Miami?
Pitt, my thing with Miami is I really think that offense is great, but I mean the Miami defense ever since that Virginia Tech game is kind of giving me a little cause for question. That is that defense going to be able to hold when they do play one of these big teams? Are they going to just outscore everybody like we've seen them do? I mean, what they gave up, was it 35 to Virginia Tech? If I'm correct, correct me if I'm wrong.
Something like that.
Yeah, 35, 38, something. So, I mean, my thing with Miami is their defense is
34.
not as weak. What?
34. You were close.
34. All right. Close, very close. If this was the Price is Right, I wouldn't have hit the big item because I was over. But
Stat Correction was brought to you by no one.
Yeah. Spade and neuter your pets, people. Spade and neuter your pets. Yeah, I mean, Miami. I'm just questioning their defense. I know that offense can score at the best, but I'd like to see a little more from Pitt playing. I mean, I haven't watched a ton of Pitt. I've watched a little bit. I'd like to see more. Clemson really surprised me, and maybe I have a little more faith in Clemson. But yeah, that defense worries me a little bit with Miami. But you do have Cam Ward, who is a Heisman candidate. So,
Joe, a couple words in the ACC. We'll move on.
Yeah, no, I think Clemson, we were writing them off at the beginning of the year, have really found an identity, and they're really starting to form it. Very physical, kind of like beginning of Dabo era, I feel like. Can he keep it going? That's another question we'll see in a couple weeks. I was looking at their schedule. Let me pull it back up. Yeah, I mean, they have to play at Pitt, and that will be really the game that we should all circle for the ACC, because I agree with Joey. I think Pitt is just a little bit more physical. They have a little bit better of a defense. But like Russ said, I do agree with when you have Cam Ward, he's electric.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is Pitt is not dominating any team really, other than their cupcake games. But these ACC games, they're winning by one score or less, it seems. Until they can really dominate an opponent like Clemson is, like Miami has here and there, but Miami really comes back. They're the comeback artists. And while I've got confidence in Cam Ward, I think, Russ, you're right with that defense. I just don't trust them. You give up 38 to Cal, but you score 39, for instance, then yeah, you're the comeback artist, but how much more sustainable is that than anything else? Checking in on the Big 12.
Circle it next week should be Pitt SMU on the second. Next week should be a great game too.
Yeah. Yeah. Checking in on the Big 12 real quick here. I know we spent quite a bit of time on the SEC and Big 10, but we got to check in on the other two power conferences for the time. BYU and Iowa State stay unbeaten with wins over Arizona and West Virginia, respectively. Sorry, Russ. Texas Tech tied with the two top of conference standings. Kansas State prevails in Boulder this past weekend with 31-38 over Deion Sanders and co. Travis Hunter exited the game with an injury. And there's a four-way tie at 2-1 in conference play between Kansas State, Colorado, West Virginia, and Cincy. Joe, seeing all this, how do you untangle this mess?
Well, I think, again, Iowa State and BYU, I didn't pick either one of them to be there. Are playing good football. I mean, you beat Arizona, sorry, Russ, pretty handily. And if you're Iowa State, I mean, you've handled your business pretty well. You beat your in-state rival at the beginning of the year. And, you kind of been just coasting. Your next tough game, looking at your schedule, if you're Iowa State, is Utah. And Utah hasn't looked that great. For the rest, I think ultimately, I mean, Texas Tech, I'm not really sold on. Kansas State, I like Kansas State. Arizona State had a big win against Utah, speaking of them. Colorado, where's Travis Hunter? If Travis Hunter is not playing, they're playing with basically one arm tied behind their back, maybe both, because he is a freak athlete, as we all know. But, yeah, I think BYU, Iowa State are clear front runners. But they don't play each other. So it'll be interesting to see them, if they're both undefeated, play each other in the championship.
Joey, I don't know if you've paid enough attention to the Big 12, but with Cam Rising now out indefinitely for Utah, he could be eligible for his 8th year of eligibility in this case, if he does get another medical red shirt. But in the meantime, you've got Zach Wilson's little brother, Isaac Wilson, starting for them, a true freshman. How has this hurt Utah or helped Utah this coming year?
I think it's hurt them more than it's helped them, honestly. I was always really high on Utah. I think that the organization plays well. They show up in the big games, when it matters and when it counts. It's unfortunate that they have to deal with injuries, but like any team, at some point you're gonna have to deal with adversity, but not necessarily when it's such a high profile player like that. But hope little brother comes in and steps in well. But what I didn't really have my eye on was Iowa State, as you touched on, Joe, and looking in, like, coming into the season for this conference, for the Big 12, I was a little more high on like K-State, seeing what they were going to do, but then doing some digging and finding out that Iowa State, they're ranked 2nd in the country coming into the season in returning production. So I think when you have some seniority and you have experience, that's really the name of the game at this level of football. So thinking that, I'm a little high on Iowa State when I necessarily wasn't, first half of the season, but they've been standing the test of time halfway through. And I think that they'll, continue, and they might even be able to lose a couple games here and there and still make it into the championship.
That's right, because the Big 12 now gets an automatic bid into the top 4, at least. We'll see how the rest of the conference does, if they warrant a second team or not, because the SEC and the Big 10, let's be real, they're going to hog a bunch of those spots. The ACC may get 2-3 teams. We'll see. But the Big 12, I think at this point, is just flirting with their automatic bid and maybe nothing more, unless 2 teams do really well. Russ, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with all you guys. Those good statements. Watching BYU. I mean, I haven't watched Iowa State enough. I'm gonna probably have to circle back, start watching them more now. Knowing they're undefeated. BYU, I watched a lot of that Arizona game. They're a physical team. good offense, very physical defense. So I like BYU a lot. But you got to watch Iowa State more. I didn't like, circle them to win or anything or even have a good year, but I'm not surprised because they do have Matt Campbell, who is an unbelievable coach.
Great coach.
Great coach who's been on the NFL radar for years to come. So I'm not like overly surprised. Obviously, I wasn't really on him. I'm not going to give myself credit and say I was on him right off the bat, but like they have it. He's a great coach. Has been on NFL. Has been trying to get him for years. So I'm not surprised. But BYU, I think, is the class. Just watching that Arizona BYU game, good offense, very physical defense. We did not look good. I think it was a tough loss, but not having you have T-Mac, who's the best receiver in the nation, but losing Jacob Cowing to the NFL, there's really no second option. So that's kind of, you just tee up on him, double team him and hope they beat him the other way. But I think BYU is kind of the class right now, but it'll be interesting to see if they both end up Iowa State and BYU end up undefeated and mean that championship game.
That's right. They don't play each other. That is possible. How about BYU being led by the only Jewish quarterback in college football? BYU of all schools.
How do you think they'll respond to BYU respond to Oklahoma State this weekend? Do you think it'll be at all like a vengeance game? Just under a year ago, they were the ones that came back from that. It was a huge deficit. They were down and then knocked them out of the playoff, right?
I'm not quite sure. But if you ask me about this week, Oklahoma State just seems like a deadbeat at this point. I don't trust Mike Gundy's team right now. I don't trust Ollie Gordon at the running back position. I definitely don't trust Alan Bowman if he's still at the quarterback position.
I don't know. Mike Gundy might have one eye too. So
he still has great hair though.
Yeah, I can only imagine to have that kind of hair when I'm 40. Just kidding. If y'all got the reference, you know what I'm talking about. But yes, I think BYU is going to handle them pretty easily. But then again, this is the Big 12. It's been known to cannibalize itself on any moment's notice. And before we go into our parlay picks, there's one more game I do want to mention here, and that was the Red River rivalry that happened this past week with Texas handling Oklahoma like it was just a business trip up to Dallas. Oklahoma looked completely lifeless pretty much the whole game. Michael Hawkins Jr. couldn't get anything going except for the field goal the entire game. It was the only time that Texas trailed the entire season so far was when they were down 3-0. But that was over very quickly. Quinn Ewers, Russ, you'll be the first one to call me out, so I'm going to call myself out saying I said in the group chat this was going to be the game they start calling for Arch, but that didn't happen. Nope. Quinn Ewers was a little bit rusty coming back from injury, but he got things going eventually. He had that one pick, and that was really the only thing he messed up. They rolled pretty easily. So I want to mention here, with Oregon getting that win over Ohio State, do they deserve the number one spot over Texas at this moment? Russ, start with you.
I really don't know. I mean, I don't know if you can drop a team down from one just when they won. They handled their business. You can only beat the team who's in front of you, and they did that, and they did it handily. I mean, I would say Oregon's got the most impressive win of the week, maybe the most impressive win of the year for ranked opponents. But I don't know if you can literally just drop Texas from one because they beat Oklahoma team that just doesn't look that good. I mean, they can't control who they play.
Joey, same question. Michigan obviously is not the same team that they were when Texas played them. With that being in mind, with Oregon's win, over Ohio State, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is when it really speaks to strength of schedule and who it is you're beating, and what's the point differential in doing that. And yeah, look, it's a lot of back and forth. We've definitely come a long way from computer generating and how we're ranking teams 1 through 12 or 1 through 25. As much as it hurts, I think Texas has just been so dominant. I hate the Longhorns, but I think that they do still deserve the number 1 spot. We're halfway through the season. I think that we have, a lot of, stats are there, and we've had the eye test through several weeks now. But I think just with that, I mean, Texas just looks like a powerhouse, and they're looking like a really good football team. But yeah, kudos to Oregon too. I mean, they're playing great ball, and they're beating talented teams as well. So I'm excited to see how the second half of the season is going to roll out with both those guys.
Joe, final thoughts before we move on.
Yeah, no, I think honestly Texas is one. They are a tier above everyone else, it seems like. I am impressed by that Oregon win. I honestly thought Ohio State would go in there and handle their business, and Oregon put up a fight, and ultimately some poor decisions or smart decisions led to a victory. Even though I'm never about one play or one decision, those were some decisions that influenced that game. But yeah, so I don't think they can jump them. I don't think you can move Texas down. So yeah, 2. I think they're 2 now, right? Just
Oregon is 2, right?
Yeah, I would say that's exactly where they should be.
Yeah, and talk about any team that's had the toughest time breaking into number 1. Back in the day, in the thick of the Alabama dynasty, when Oregon was just right there with them, they would never be able to overtake them just because they played in the Pac-12 and Alabama was in the SEC. The one time I remember they did was 2012 after Alabama lost to Texas A&M and Johnny Manziel. For 1 week, Oregon stood up there at number 1, and they lost to Stanford at home. So then Kansas State was number 1, and then Baylor beats them. And then chaos ensued. We all know what happens from there. And we all know what happens right now because it's time for the Paradise Parlay picks. Let's go. PD Parlay is out for the week. I don't see if he's put his picks in here. Looks like he is not. So Pete's going to lose some traction here. But who's really keeping count this year? Russ is done with it.
It's on Pete, dude.
Yeah. Starting here with Miami at Louisville, battle for the Howard Schnellenberger Trophy with the Boots. Spread here is Miami -4. The over-under is 61. Miami -175 money line. Louisville +145. Miami coming in as a road favorite here. Russ, do you believe the hype?
Yeah, I got Miami. I want my cigar now. I want to, we're going Howard Schnell. I want my cigar in my room right now and just blowing smoke everywhere. But I got Miami covering. I got the over, and I got Miami winning.
Joe.
Yeah, I'm with Russ. I feel like Louisville, ever since that ND game, has been kind of reeling. Yeah, Miami over, and I'm taking Miami money line.
Joey.
Yeah, I mean, not to be a third to agree, but yeah, I definitely like Miami coming in here. I like them -4, just to be a little different. I think I'm going to take the under here. Not a popular choice, but just to see. Who knows? Just taking the under. But yeah, I think Miami takes care of business.
They've learned since last year in a heartbreaking loss when they did play Louisville in Miami. This time it's on the road, and I don't think this Louisville team is nearly as good as the last year's one. I will take Louisville to cover. I think Miami's going to win by maybe 1 point or a field goal, so -4. I'll go Louisville covers that. And then I like Joey's pick there. I'll go the under 2. Miami is going to win. I'll take the money line. Nebraska at Indiana. Who would have thunk at this point in the season that we're paying attention to Indiana football? But here we are, undefeated. Kirk Cinetti, coach of the year. I'm still going to say it every single week until they lose. Is that going to be this week, though? Nebraska at Indiana. Indiana is a -6.5 point favorite at home. 51 over under. -218 for the Hoosiers. Nebraska coming in road 180 plus. Starting with Joey, let's hear from you.
Indiana's been impressive. Even with that, 6.5. Even being at home, I don't like that. I'll take the points there. So I'll take Nebraska with the points. I do like the over, but I do think taking Indiana on the money line. I think that they'll take care of business at home, and they're on a streak and they've been playing good football.
Joe, do you believe in Patrick Mahomes Jr. enough for this?
I mean, I do have them with the points. I'm with Joey as well. Indiana, who would have thought they would be undefeated by this time this year? So I'm taking the over as well. I think that both teams will put up points. So Patty Mahomes Jr., he can sling the ball around, but I'm taking IU to win. I think, just keep that undefeated train rolling, IU. Go Hoosiers.
I've been on the Indiana hype train since week 1, and this is the biggest test they've faced so far, for sure. Nebraska's definitely an upstart too under Matt Rule. This is year 2 for him, and they've shown signs of life for the first time in a decade and a half since Bo Pelini was there. They're not going to make this easy, that's for sure. This Nebraska team can play, but ultimately I feel like half of JMU came to Indiana with Kirk Cignetti. Nebraska, while I do have their fair share of seniority here, I just feel like they're not experienced enough just yet. So Indiana will win, but give me Nebraska to cover that too. Indiana will probably win by a field goal, just like Miami will. And I'm going to go the over because both teams do know how to score pretty well, and give me the Hoosiers at home. Russ.
Yeah, well, Justin, I'm going to fact check you on that. Just remember, we are on tape. So you will be called out if you weren't on Indiana week 1. I will definitely go fact check you on that. I'm with all 3 of you guys. I got Nebraska with the points. I got Indiana with the money line to continue their undefeated season going. But I'm going to go the under. I think it's going to be let's go. It's this Big Ten football. It's all about defense.
All right, and that's still a little different approach. Alabama, Tennessee, what was once a fierce rivalry game, kind of petered off for a long time when Alabama dominated. Tennessee struck back a couple years ago. Now it seems both teams have kind of been humbled after a loss. Bama is a road favorite here, -2.5. The over-under is 56. Bama -42. Tennessee +120. Joey, are you believing the hype of Josh Heupel in Tennessee, or are you going with Kalen DeBoer and the Tide?
That's tough. I actually do think that I am going to go with Tennessee here. I just purely because of their defense. I think they're a tough team on defense. They're big up front. Even though at the same time, I mean, the Alabama, it's definitely more of a passing team. Last week, quarterback was averaging almost 11 yards per pass. So they have to watch out for that. But I think the defense will step up. I'm going to take the points here. I also like the under just because of the Tennessee defense there. But I do think that Alabama's going to pull it off. I think it's going to be a close game.
Let's go with Russ.
Yeah, I'm going to go Alabama with the money line. What's the spread? 3.5?
2.5.
2.5. Yeah, I'm going to go Alabama to cover, and I'm going to go the over. I hope we have another classic game like we did in Neyland a couple of years ago. I would wish I would say I wish I was in Tennessee, but I don't think Tennessee is going to win this year because that was a hell of a party after. Everybody was hammered and just going nuts. But I think Alabama maybe 3 or 4, but both teams are kind of reeling, not looking all great the last couple games.
It must be a Tennessee thing when you beat Alabama to tear down your goalpost and throw it into the Cumberland River, right?
Yes, sir.
Wild.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Alabama and I'm gonna quote an off the Breaking Bad, Jesse Pinkman just saying they can't keep getting away with it because, I mean, who's just going to finally beat them? They're a great team for keep pulling it out, but it's just like someone has got to beat them. And I think Tennessee will. That's why I'm taking them with the points. I think both teams are going to put up points, so I'm taking the over. And I have Tennessee winning outright. I just think you can't keep being this lucky. Alabama's using up all their luck early in the season, so I'm taking Tennessee.
Oh gosh, we saw Alabama already lose in the state of Tennessee a couple weeks ago. After beating the number 1 team in the nation, they take over the number 1 team and they lose to Vanderbilt. Yes, that Vanderbilt. Now Tennessee is not Vanderbilt; they're actually their big rival. Sorry, Tennessee fans, if you think I'm comparing you to your big rival. You just share a state. That's all. But this one is a lot different because we expect something at Tennessee. We didn't expect anything out of Vanderbilt. Bama 2.5 going on the road here. Just because this is a rivalry game, you expect it to be close. And gosh, I really am so torn here. But I feel like I'm going to give Kalen DeBoer one more shot at the big game here. He'll win the big games, but he can also lose the one right after it. They always get riled up for the big rivalry ones. This is one of them. So I'll take the Bama money line. Sure. I don't like the spread, but I guess I'll take Bama to cover here. And I'm going to go with, I guess I'll go with the under because it seems like both teams have had some trouble scoring the last couple of weeks, and I don't see that changing. And for our game of the week here, staying in the SEC, we have Georgia at Texas. Big game. Game day is going to be there. I'm so pumped for it. Texas -3.5 at home, 56.5 over under. The Longhorns are a -166 favorite on the money line. Bulldogs come in at +140. I'll go here first. Texas is at home. I don't know if I trust Texas to have the full-on home field advantage that other schools may have in the SEC. Yeah, their stadium is pretty big, but they are just getting into this SEC culture. And when you talk SEC culture, you talk really loud, really crazy, rowdy fans. And while Texas sure has their handful of that, I don't know if they're full on what the SEC has been used to for so many years. I don't know. I really don't know. It's so tight. But ultimately, I'll go with the Longhorns to pull it off at home just because they've got Quinn Ewers, a very experienced veteran who makes fewer mistakes, I feel, than Carson Beck has this year when he's been healthy. So I'll take Texas to cover here. I'll take the over just because they can't stop scoring. UGA's defense has looked a bit more vulnerable the last few weeks. And Texas money line. Russ.
Yeah, like I said probably too many times, Texas is on a mission this year. So I just think Texas is just too much going for them. So I got them covering, got the money line, and you got the over.
Joey.
What a difference half a point makes in decision making. Really here, I mean, they have been inconsistent. And I think there's definitely some holes in their defense. However, they're 16 of 17 in their last, road games, and they're rarely featured as underdogs. And at 3.5 points, that's just too tough to stay away from. So I'm taking the points here, taking the 3.5 with Georgia. I'll go the over because why not? But I think it's going to be close. I think that half a point is going to make a difference. I think Texas wins by a field goal.
Oh, great analysis, Joe.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick with the same philosophy I had with Georgia, and that's until someone beats them, they're the team to ride with. And since that's Texas, I'm riding with Texas. I'm taking the over, and I'm going to take Texas with the points and money line.
Very nice, guys. Very nice. Joey, how's it feel? First Paradise Parlay.
It's good. It was fun. That's that's my wheelhouse. Don't tell Laura. Don't tell my wife. But hopefully she's not listening.
And now for our next segment here, upset cover and other games we're watching. I went a little conservative here and just picked my cover, but we've already seen one huge win kind of distract one team, Alabama over Georgia. Next week they go on the road and they lay an egg against Vanderbilt. I already mentioned that. This week, Oregon has a potential trap game I'm going to call at Purdue, one of the worst teams in the Power 5 right now. But we saw last week they took Illinois, a pretty good Illinois team, to overtime, scoring 49 points in the process. And with that, I thought maybe there was a chance early in the season that Purdue might be able to pull out the upset with Oregon. I think Oregon's strong enough to win, but this is welcome to the Big Ten moment. You're not flying up and down the West Coast anymore. You're flying to Middle America now, to the middle of West Lafayette, Indiana, to play this team. After a huge win, are your emotions going to be riding high? Are you going to be distracted? Or are you just going to go and handle your business? Now, I'd like to say Dan Lanning's the type who's going to put his team in that business mindset. Just go, win, and get out. I don't know. This season might be a little bit different. I'll take Purdue with the cover, and that is plus 27.5 at home. Joe.
So I got two for you. Another one is I'm taking the over for the Colorado versus Arizona game. I think both teams are going to put up points. But my upset alert is going to be, I'm saying Arkansas plus 2.5 over LSU. I think after that big game, upsetting Ole Miss in overtime, they may overlook Arkansas. Arkansas has already upset
Tennessee.
Thank you. They played Texas A&M very close, and it's at Arkansas. I think they can definitely upset LSU. So at 2.5, I'll take them. The game I'm obviously watching, though, is the Bama-Tennessee game or Texas-Georgia. Those are the two best games of the weekend.
Very nice. Russ.
Yeah, so, I didn't know 2.5 points was an upset, but Russ is off the scorekeeping this year to check everybody. So Pete,
yeah, you're not scorekeeping anymore, so you can't say anything.
He just willy nilly it, way to go, Joe, on that. And Pete set a precedent that you get an upset and a cover because he said that. So my upset is going to be beat Boston College at +7 over Virginia Tech, and then I think Virginia is going to cover at Clemson. Games I'm watching: Indiana, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Illinois, Michigan. Obviously, everybody's going to be watching the Tennessee, Alabama, and Texas, Georgia game.
That's right. And Joey.
Yeah, good stuff. I like the picks, guys. Here did a little digging, and I think going actually with the Gamecocks. So they're going over to Oklahoma. So South Carolina, they're getting 3 points in this game. They haven't necessarily. They've had some close calls. They had some really close games against LSU and Alabama. They're getting 3 points in this game, and they had a pretty dominant road win against Kentucky this year too. So, hey, I'll take the points here. I think that they got unlucky in some of these losses against good teams, but yeah, hey, and they can prove it. So for as big as an upset can be at a 3-point favorite or 3-point dog, I'll take the Gamecocks there. And yeah, I was tuning in a lot of SEC Trojans, but yeah, definitely gonna be turning into that Georgia Texas game.
Absolutely. And I said in the chat that you're not in right now, Joey, is that South Carolina is the unluckiest team in the country. Would anybody want to contest that? I guess not.
Well, it's recorded. It's in the books. Look, they're
the one time they got lucky was recovering that onside kick, but you couldn't cash in. You had a guy open, you couldn't cash in.
Monkey's only going to stay on your back for so long. So,
yep. And moving on here, checking in on the Heisman race. Guys, how about Ashton Genty? Still killing it with Barry Sanders-esque numbers. I think there's been a graphic going around comparing him at this point to where Barry Sanders was and where other Heisman running backs from this century, Reggie Bush, Derrick Henry, and Mark Ingram were at this point. And the yardage is not close, but at the same time, neither are the carries, and neither is the level of competition. He nearly beat Oregon by himself, but he didn't. The other guys were playing in power conferences was the difference. Is he the full-on favorite, though, Joe?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Heisman Trophy, regardless of it normally being a quarterback one trophy, is still the best player in college football. And his stats are almost unhuman. They're ridiculous. So, yeah, he's definitely the clear favorite.
Dillon Gabriel with 3 touchdowns in the win over Ohio State. Russ, is he back in the race? And if so, where is he?
You put him behind Genty, obviously, but that vaults him right back up in the race. That's a big landmark W, coming in the Big Ten. But like Joe said, Genty's stats are just ridiculous. And I'd love to see a Heisman winner from Boise State.
It'd just be a great story, absolutely. Cam Ward was off this week on a bye. Quinn Ewers looks okay, above average, but did he do enough to keep pace in the race during his return, Joey?
I don't think so. I think really right now is where the season stands. It's coming down to, Gentry is just, out of this world. And then Dillon Gabriel too. To see battling against Ohio State. Definitely, I think it made it a tighter race. But no, I don't think it's done enough to necessarily like stay in right now. But hey, we're halfway through the season. Who knows what the second half of the season will bring? But yeah, right now I got Gentry and Gabriel's definitely making a name for himself and closing the gap.
Last bit on this: Travis Hunter's injury did knock him out, but if he misses time, is he fully out of the race, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, he's especially how much. I'd love to see him get to New York, but depending how much time he misses, there's gonna be too many quarterbacks there.
And at his positions, it's already hard enough to win the Heisman or even get considered for it. Joe, your thoughts on Travis Hunter at this point in the season?
Yeah, no, I mean, he needs every game to show out. He's not putting up, 200 yards rushing, even on a kind of soft schedule. He's not defeating a team like Ohio State, last minute drive. So he needs every game. And if he misses time, that definitely hurts him. And I think he may not get the call to New York if that happens. He needs to play this coming weekend.
Joey, any last thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like even if he does, return and doesn't miss time, I think at best he'll get a call to go to New York. I don't know if he'll surpass any of the top two guys that I mentioned, but I think it depends on like who you're surrounding yourself on your team too. I mean, he's one of just really like two players that can produce at Colorado right now. And we've seen it with, Caleb Williams in the past when he didn't have, phenomenal options around him and he was still able to win a Heisman Trophy. But I think if you have to be able to elevate the people around you, and yeah, hey, I mean, he's a great player and he's doing a great job. Even if he doesn't miss any time, hopefully you can get a call, but I don't see him as a front runner at all.
And great shows today, everyone. Our last segment here is going to be our Cheers of the Week. Starting off with me. My Cheer of the Week goes out to Vanderbilt. Again, 2 SEC wins in a row. Hey, baby steps, right? Baby steps to building a program, especially in the SEC. Clark Lee doing the dirty work over there at his alma mater. Good for Vanderbilt. Good for college football. Top to bottom depth. Joe.
Yeah, mine is to October 12th, living up to the hype, being one of the best college football days in a very long time, as long as I can really remember. I would not say it was probably the best day, but it was definitely up there. So I'm glad it lived up to the hype.
October 12th, day it'll go down in college football history. Russ.
Yeah, mine's going to be a little stat of the week. So this is the first. I'm gonna throw it out to you guys. It's gonna be a poll question, but this is the first time that we got a top 3 that doesn't feature Alabama, Clemson, UGA, Ohio State, or Michigan. Now, what was the last time we've seen that? Can anybody name that? No Google searches.
I'm gonna guess 2003. Because I feel like it was Oklahoma, USC, and LSU.
Joey and Joe, any
That's
guess?
That's a good guess. That's what I was thinking back to. So I'll go right around you. I'll go 02.
Miami and Ohio State year. That's right.
Mr. Warnstad?
I don't have one.
The correct answer is November 9th, 2014.
A lot more recent than we thought. I believe that was Mississippi State, Oregon, and somebody else, right?
It was Mississippi State, Florida State, and Oregon.
Oh, man. 2 out of 3. Let's go.
You get points for that anyways. That's pretty good.
Russ, put those points down.
You lost. Yeah, I'm sorry, Justin. It was a parlay, so you parlayed all 3, so you lost all 3.
Damn it, Jameis. I forgot about you.
Yeah.
And Joey, close us out.
Forgot about the crab, too.
I know the segment is Cheers for the Week, and it's my first time on, but I'm taking a little pivot, and it's my Tears for the Week because my Trojans lost, unfortunately. But Joe, I will piggyback off of you. Even watching that game, even though, and a ton of the other games that week, you want to have that instead of it being 62-3. So it was great football. But yeah, still drying my tears, and let's hope the Trojans can go get a big win on the road this week in the Big Ten.
And Joey, once again, thank you for being here, filling in for Pete. You did a great job. Hope to get you on some more this year.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah. Russ, Joe, thank you as always. And thank you to the Finstock Sports Network. This has been Touchdown in Paradise, and we will see you next time right here on FTSN.